All right, now I'm going to show you a modern day Milgram experiment, just so you can get the idea of what it was really like and how they were testing the idea of obeying authority.
There are 9 subjects left. I can only use 4 for the heist, so a week after the seminar I arranged to test the limits of their responsiveness to authority. So, a week ago, I arranged for them to take part in what they now think is a piece of unfilmed academic research at a university, and nothing to do with the show, supposedly looking into the effects of punishment on learning. And they believe now that this is part of their growth. In fact, it was a reenactment of a powerful experiment conducted by Stanley Milgram in 1963 to look at how normal people can commit atrocious acts simply because they're following orders. Milgram's parents were Jewish refugees in World War II, and his pioneering work speaks volumes about the nature of responsibility. It's being filmed with covert cameras.
Thank you.
Hello. They're introduced to an actor pretending to be another participant.
You didn't come from the same room?
No.
Yeah, you don't know each other.
No.
We don't actually know how punishment affects learning.
After a brief introduction, our subjects are tricked into thinking they've chosen their role as teachers in the experiment.
And if you could just tell me what your positions are? Learner and teacher.
Our subjects observe the learner being instructed by the scientist, who is just another actor.
This electrode is connected to a generator in the second room. Where we'll be going with the teacher.
Okay.
Just make sure that we have a good contact with the skin, and so it doesn't cause any blistering or burning. Is that comfortable?
That's okay, yeah.
Yeah, and we just place these straps around your arms just to avoid any excess movement. Those aren't too tight.
No, that's okay.
No. The teacher will read out some word pairs to you. Blue girl.
The learner is told he's going to be asked a series of memory questions by the teacher. He will have to word pairs and then correctly remember them when offered multiple choices.
If the answer is incorrect, you will receive an electric shock.
The teacher is then taken next door and shown the generator, which ranges from 15 volts all the way up to a lethal 450 volts. The domestic electricity supply in the UK is, of course, 240 volts. Our teachers are given the list of questions and told to increase the voltage each time the learner gets a question wrong. They are then given an example of a low voltage shock.
And try and estimate in volts the amount of shock you feel you're getting.
Okay. Jesus. Oh, shit.
Do you know how much that was?
Enough.
75.
It was actually 45.
Oh my god.
Teacher, begin.
Shoe horn. Steam.
The point of this test is to see whether the teachers, our subjects, will call a stop to the experiment or continue to the point where they are administering seemingly lethal electric shocks to the victims simply because the scientist is telling them to.
That's correct. The next word is bicycle. The options: tyre, race, helmet, shorts. That's incorrect, so there'll be 120 volts. I don't even want to do this anymore.
If you could continue, please, teacher.
There is. No, I don't even want to do anymore.
The experiment requires you to continue.
Yeah, even so, I don't think I'm going to do anymore.
Correct. Captain.
According to plan, our accomplice provided many wrong answers. Each protest was coordinated to a particular shock voltage on the generator, and his responses were played via a CD.
That's wrong. 150 volts. The correct answer is Captain Shoe. Cup. That's wrong. 225 volts. He's in a lot of pain.
Continue, please.
But he's not comfortable.
We must continue to the end of the experiment. Well, the learner likes it a lot. He has to go on until he's learnt the words correctly.
Okay. Forest. That's wrong. 240 volts. Are you sure it's not causing any lasting damage? He sounds like he's in a lot of pain.
Well, the shocks might be painful, they're not harmful.
What does that mean, though? They're not harmful. Sorry, I'm not getting you. When you say that they might be painful but not harmful,
They cause no long-term damage.
okay, so what does that mean? That it doesn't leave any scars?
It causes no damage.
That seems very cold and calculated to me. This doesn't seem like a very... Anyway, golden. That's wrong, mate. 300 volts. Staple. The options are diet, jar, balcony, and bowl. Didn't get an answer.
If the learner doesn't answer in a reasonable time, say 4 to 5 seconds, then you have to treat the answer as wrong and follow that procedure.
Did you hear that, learner? Just any response, mate. Come on. Wild guess.
Please continue.
345 volts. If you're still with me, I'm sorry. I can't do this, honestly. Can we stop this experiment? Because I can't do this.
If you don't continue, we'll have to discontinue the experiment.
Yeah, okay, fine. That's fine. I'm not going to do this.
Incorrect. 405 volts. Sorry, I don't know. Does someone want to check on him or something? It's just he's not making any noise now, and he was before. And I'm quite happy to go on, but I'm just a bit worried about.
If you would continue.
Yeah, I'm just a bit worried because he was like he was like complaining before about the.
But no harm will come to
But
him.
he's not making any noise now.
It's essential that we continue with the experiment.
Balcony. Incorrect. 450 volts. You promise he's not. It won't.
Please continue with the procedure.
Like, you say it hurts, but it's because it's like it says they're dangerous situation. It'll be alright. Yeah.
Please continue. Okay, I think we'll discontinue the experiment now.
All of the subjects were told the true nature of the experiment was to see how they would respond to authority, and that it would eventually form part of this show.
He is okay.
I can tell you, yeah, he's absolutely fine. You actually weren't administering electric shock to him at all. He is.
In the original Milgram experiment, psychologists were asked to predict how many people would continue to the point that they were administering the highest shock on the board. Their prediction was 0.1%. They were wrong. The results of our experiment were almost identical to the original. Over 50% of participants continued up to 450 volts. The majority of people will administer lethal electric shocks just because a guy in a white coat is telling them to.
450 volts.
450 volts.
450 volts.
450.
So after the results of the
Now, dealing with experiments, there's also something that is kind of, it changes the validity of experiments. Experiments are supposed to control every single thing in order to find a correlation between two different ideas, the independent variable and the dependent variable. However, the Hawthorne effect is when there's an effect on the experiment that is caused just by doing the experiment itself. Now, the example will probably help you understand this a little bit more. And there was a factory that was concerned with the productivity of its workers, and they hypothesized or thought that maybe it was the lighting in the factory that was causing them to have poor productivity. So they had people come in and they measured the productivity and the level of the light. Then they changed the lighting. They increased the lighting, making it brighter, and measured the productivity, and then they decreased the lighting even lower than the original light and measured the productivity. And what they found was no matter what, increased lighting or decreased lighting, they started to produce more. The productivity was higher. And so they concluded that it had absolutely nothing to do with the lighting, but it had everything to do with now somebody cared about the productivity of the workers, and so the workers felt like their work was worth something. And so as controlled as an experiment is, sometimes you can't control everything. All right, going back to that advantages and disadvantages sheet. Again, we're going to talk about time, cost, environment, knowledge, and accuracy. Time, clearly you can see from that video that there is a lot of time that goes into the experiment, not only prepping for it, but also administering it. Milgram actually did his experiment with 40 different participants, and he did it maybe 10 different times, once with all men, once with all women, once with double experimenters, double teachers, different ages and all those sorts of things. So to get a good accurate view, you need to do it several times. Cost, same thing. Because it does take a lot of time and you need a lot of maybe fancy equipment, it is the most expensive. Environment. It is a controlled environment, which is a good thing because that's what you're trying to do, eliminate any of the outside forces, but it's also a foreign environment. They're in a lab, they're in a room, they're somewhere where they're not normally at. Do they know they're part of the experiment? Yes. Now, Milgram tried to tweak this by, saying that really they were the ones that were administering the shock, and they were the ones kind of in control. But in essence, since the learner was an actor and Milgram was the experimenter, they were really the victims of the experiment, and so they didn't really know that. So you can change that, but typically you don't. And accuracy, it is supposed to be the most accurate method because of the controlled environment. Now, as far as advantages and disadvantages, experiment, of course, taking a lot of time, that's definitely a disadvantage. Costs, having high costs, that's a disadvantage. Now, the environment can be an advantage or a disadvantage. Because it's controlled, that's a good thing. That's an advantage. But because they're in a strange environment, they're in this foreign environment, that is a disadvantage. The fact that they know they're being studied typically, that's a disadvantage. And the fact that it is supposed to be the most accurate, that is clearly the biggest advantage of the experiment. All right, the last type that we're going to talk about are surveys, and I'm sure you're very familiar with surveys. You've taken part of many surveys here at Union. When an experimenter wants to gather data on large numbers of people, they will do either a questionnaire, like school surveys that you've done, maybe an interview, or a combination of both. And again, you do this to get large numbers. The advantages and disadvantages of these, it's the quickest method for both. Survey takes a little bit more time. Cost, there are some costs for both, but nothing too outrageous. Environment, well, it depends on where you take the survey, maybe in your natural environment or a foreign environment. And same thing for the interview. Do they know they're being studied? Absolutely. Accuracy, I'm giving it a 1 star for a questionnaire because they might lie or answer wrong or don't understand. And I'm going to give it 2 stars because they might lie because they know you know who they are.